The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Chen walked to the podium. 47 species watched from their hovering platforms, their various appendages, sensors, and optical organs fixed on the lone human representative. The vote had been unanimous, 47 Nero. Earth's petition for membership had been rejected. "We understand your decision," Chen said, her voice steady despite the weight of representing 8 billion souls. "We'll return to our system and continue our development independently." The Vraxian High Speaker's mandibles clicked with barely concealed amusement. How gracious of the primitives to accept their place. His translator chip rendered the condescension perfectly. "Perhaps in another 1,000 cycles, when your species has matured beyond your violent tendencies, we might reconsider." What none of them knew, what their vast intelligence networks and precognitive analysts had somehow missed, was that humanity had expected this outcome. And they had prepared for it. 3 months later, the Vraxian Empire's primary trade route simply vanished. Not destroyed, not blockaded. The hyperspace lanes themselves became unusable, collapsing whenever a Vraxian vessel attempted passage. Their economy, dependent on swift transportation across their 14 systems, began hemorrhaging credits. Planets went hungry, civil unrest erupted. The Vraxians blamed spatial anomalies until one of their scientists noticed something peculiar. The disruptions followed mathematical patterns. Human mathematical patterns. Specifically, they matched theoretical. Papers published by a Terran physicist named Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. 3 years prior, papers the Galactic Council had dismissed as interesting but impractical fantasies. Humanity had weaponized theoretical physics. The Kelthran Consortium discovered humanity's retribution differently. Their military network, considered impenetrable by galactic standards, began receiving contradictory orders. Fleets moved to wrong coordinates. Supply chains rerouted to empty space. By the time their cybersecurity traced the intrusions, they found something terrifying. The attacks weren't coming from outside their network. They were coming from inside the hardware itself. Humanity had learned something the galaxy's advanced species had forgotten, that sometimes the most sophisticated systems were vulnerable to the most primitive attacks. Every piece of Kelthran technology contained rare Earth elements. Elements they had purchased from Earth decades ago, during humanity's pre-FTL era, when the Council races had treated Earth as nothing more than a convenient mining world. Those elements had been carefully treated, embedded with nanoscale circuitry so advanced it made current galactic tech look like stone knives, circuitry that had waited patiently, dormant for the signal to activate. The Kelthrans hadn't voted against Earth. They had invited a Trojan horse into every ship, station, and strategic installation they owned. The Zypharian collective fell differently. As a hive mind species, they relied on quantum-entangled communication across their 17 colony worlds. It was instantaneous, unhackable, and had made them the galaxy's premier intelligence-gathering civilization. They had voted against Earth with particular enthusiasm, having peered into humanity's violent history and declared them irredeemably barbaric. Then their queens started dying. Not from weapons or poison, but from cancer, hyper-aggressive, treatment-resistant cancer, that appeared simultaneously in queens across different star systems. The collective's medical experts were baffled until one of them noticed that every affected queen had consumed Terran coffee within the past year, a luxury export Earth had cleverly marketed as artisanal and exclusive to the galaxy's elite. The coffee had been perfectly safe. What humanity had sold alongside it, beautiful decorative containers made from a newly discovered Earth fungus, were not. The fungus produced spores that were harmless to most species but devastatingly carcinogenic, to Zypharian biology specifically, and humanity had known this. They had done the research, run the simulations, and packaged genocide as a gift basket. One by one, the empires that had so casually dismissed humanity began to crumble. Not from fleets of warships or armies of soldiers, but from surgical, creative, and utterly devastating attacks that exploited every interaction they'd ever had with Earth. Humanity had been taking notes, studying, learning, and planning. The Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session. Of the 47 species that had voted against Earth, 31 now faced existential crises. The remaining 16, seeing the pattern, were paralyzed by fear of what might come for them next. Ambassador Chen returned to the council chamber, but this time she wasn't alone. She was flanked by representatives from 12 other species, races that had been oppressed, exploited, or dismissed by the Council's powerful elite. Species that humanity had quietly contacted, offering technology, trade, and something the galaxy's empires had long forgotten: genuine partnership. "You voted us out because you saw our history," Chen began, her image broadcast across the galaxy. "You saw our wars, our violence, our competitive nature. You called us primitive, barbaric, dangerous." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You were right to fear us, but not for the reasons you think. You've lived in your stable empires for so long that you've forgotten what evolution truly means. You forgot that predators don't just hunt with claws and teeth. They hunt with patience, intelligence, and adaptation. You saw our violence and missed our creativity. You noticed our wars but ignored what we learned from them. That conflict isn't won by the strongest but by the most adaptable." The Vraxian High Speaker's platform trembled. "You've committed acts of terrorism against sovereign nations. The Council will do nothing," Chen interrupted, "because you have no authority over us. You made that clear with your vote. We are not members of your galactic community. We are not bound by your laws, and we are not asking for permission anymore." She gestured to the representatives beside her. "These species, the ones you've marginalized and exploited, they understand something you've forgotten. That cooperation is stronger than domination. That diversity of thought is more valuable than conformity. They've joined us in forming a new alliance, one built on mutual respect rather than hierarchical power. So here's what happens next," Chen continued. "Our attacks stop immediately for any empire that agrees to 3 conditions. First, reparations to every species you've exploited. Second, full membership in our new alliance with equal voting rights. Third, complete transparency in your dealings with other species. And if we refuse?" The Kelthran Consortium's spokesperson buzzed. Chen smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "Then you'll learn what humanity's greatest weapon truly is. Not our technology or our tactics, but our memory. We remember every slight, every exploitation, every dismissal, and we have the patience of a species that clawed its way out of caves to reach the stars. We can wait as long as it takes to remind you that underestimating humans is the last mistake an empire ever makes." The vote was called 3 days later. This time it was 31-0 in favor of accepting the terms. The 16 species that hadn't yet been attacked abstained, too terrified to choose sides. Earth had taught the galaxy an ancient human lesson. Civilization is just a word for the predators who learn to work together. And humanity had never stopped being predators, they had simply evolved better methods of hunting. The empires burned not with fire, but with the cold realization that they had rejected the one species that understood power's most fundamental truth. It belongs to those willing to claim it. Consequences be damned, and humanity was done asking permission.